From Stormont, Dundas, and South Portagear.
Thank you, Speaker. To the Minister of Energy. When Ontarians were facing disconnections in the middle of winter, the Premier said to this House that Hydro One was already complying with a no disconnection policy. So it's obvious that once again this government does not know what's going on at Hydro. Steve and George in my riding were disconnected on February 20th and 21st and had to deal with flooded basements and buying generators to avoid frozen pipes, as Hydro One had silently disconnected their service. Both had no arrears. The Minister of Energy says, and I quote, that the one thing they've been doing, Mr. Speaker, is enhancing public service, customer service. Speaker, is this government made of Hydro salespeople, or are they actually made of ministers who will provide proper oversight?
Thank you, Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know lately the opposition have been bringing stories to this House about individual customers, Mr. Speaker. What's frustrating, Mr. Speaker, is that often the member hasn't contacted me directly about this issue, or apparently hasn't even contacted the local utility to try and resolve the issue before bringing it up here in question period, Mr. Speaker. Last week, for example, a member opposite raised the story of someone who received a false electricity bill after their house was tragically lost in a fire, Mr. Speaker. If the member had talked to me or Hydro One, we could have gotten the issue resolved right away, Mr. Speaker. When they learned of the mistake, Hydro One immediately reversed the charges, Mr. Speaker, and has promised the customer 4 months of free credits. But apparently helping this customer wasn't really that priority of that party, Mr. Speaker. I get it, Mr. Speaker. If you don't have a real plan on electricity, it makes sense to try and focus on the problems.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Speaker, back to the Minister. And Minister, we have resolved the problem, but they shouldn't have happened in the first place. The government promises modest compensation, and at Hydro One we see outrageous salaries. The government promises no disconnections, yet Hydro One disconnects anyway. Every time a story of incompetence and outrageous customer service comes to Hydro One to the House, all the government can say is, well, we'll look into it, or that we were becoming customer-focused, or Hydro One is becoming a better company. Empty promise. How long will it take this government to realize this pattern it's a pattern and it needs to be broken? As a majority shareholder of Hydro One, it is in the minister's duty and obligation to act in the public interest and fix these problems. When will the government find some decency and take some long-needed leadership and executive pay, transparency, and customer service, while they are still the majority shareholder?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Always happy to rise up and talk about the great work that this side of the House has done on the electricity file, Mr. Speaker. For decades, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Renfrew, second time. Never too late to get warned or named. Finish, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it's interesting that
Member from Thornhill. I didn't even get to sit down. Let's try this again.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we're happy to actually provide solutions for the people of Ontario. That's what we do, Mr. Speaker. We act on that. On that side of the House, Mr. Speaker, they have no plan, they have no idea on what to do, and that's why they come to us, Mr. Speaker, to actually get things done. And that's what we've done with the Fair Hydro Plan, that's what we've done on these issues, and we'll continue to do that as we build this province up, Mr. Speaker.